It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by my friend Tom. Tom, how are you today, bro?
I'm doing well. I am on the right side of the screen, so a little bit different, changing it up. You have, I guess, control. I guess StreamYard thinks you are the main host, which we've never actually decided who's the main host, who's the co-host. I guess I'm the co-host. You're the main host. Let's do this. Whoever has the better record at the end of the year will be the host for next year. Right now, I am winning. If you look in the description, I think I'm up by like 6.5 picks. Not a phenomenal weekend by either of us last week, but I choose not to believe last week happened. And let's just move forward into the fantastic card of Ketlen Vieira versus Holm as the main event. It's 2022, where UFC is $1 billion company, and these are the main events that come with that territory. Would you not agree, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a great card that they've really put together for us. You know, there's some absolutely intrepid names on here. I brought intrepid back. That means adventurous and exciting. Yeah, I mean, no, we'll be honest. I mean, when you have a card that has Sam Hughes, Parker Porter, you know, Eryk Anders, there's a few good fights on here, but I'm not super excited for this one. But I also think there's plenty of opportunities to make money on this card. There's a lot of pick'em fights here. So why don't we start as we always do with our prelim locks? And so for my first prelim lock, this one is a tough one, but this is someone that I have faith in. I haven't always had faith in him in the past, but that's actually Chase Hooper. And that's because this is a Chase Hooper that, you know, he's fighting for his career in the UFC right now, as crazy as that sounds, because he's so young. And, you know, the formerly known as the Teenage Dream, now just the Dream. But he's a young fella. He's 22. You know, he kind of is on a little bit of a shaky track record in his most recent fights. He's 2-1 out of his last 3. And this is an interesting matchup by the UFC matchmakers too, because just looking at Tapology, Chase Hooper is the 85th ranked featherweight, you know, on Tapology, period. And his opponent this weekend, Felipe Colares, is the number 84th ranked featherweight in the just period, you know, nationwide, worldwide on Tapology. So great matchup. And Chase Hooper is a plus 140 underdog. We all know that Chase Hooper, you know, he tries to be Ben Askren's son, but he has a great ground game, you know, similar to Ben Askren. He's okay on his feet, a little bit awkward. You know, he kind of looks like a baby giraffe out there sometimes, stumbling around, doesn't really know where he's at. But I have faith in him in this one. You know, he also seems to be on one of these patterns that's like win-loss right now. So, you know, I like Chase Hooper to take it down there, potential. And he has a couple different ways to win, right? Like, but I think more likely than not, he's going to control on the top for 3 rounds for a solid 15 minutes, win this one by a 30-27 decision. But being, you know, that he's a great ground guy, he's got some solid jiu-jitsu, there is a high chance that he wins this one by submission. So because he has 2 good paths to victory here, I'm going to lock in the plus 140 underdog with Chase Hooper. What do you got for us by way of prelim locks, Tom?
Yeah, I'm going to go with, and I don't know if I can pick Chase Hooper as much as I'd like to, you know, Teenage Dream, Regular Dream, Wet Dream, you know, whatever it may be. If you're a Chase Hooper fan, I want to pick him more than I really see things like aligning to, looking at his past few fights. He's just hasn't shown himself as the caliber of UFC fighter that we would look to see, or look. He doesn't have the skills that accompany a UFC caliber fighter. There we go. Finally got it out. As much as we all want him to, I mean, it's crazy when we have those super duper young people in the UFC, but I just don't think at this point he's proven to us that he belongs in the UFC. And I think sometimes what the best thing could be for him to do is go to a lesser promotion, really work on those skills, come back 27, 28 in the prime of your career and you know, really set it off. We have guys like Yuri Prochazka who's turning down the UFC not once, but 2 times, multiple times in order to really explode onto the scene once they get there. You know, Chase Hooper, if he wins this fight, he could stay in the UFC, and we'll see what improvements he's made from that point. I know that he spends a lot of time out there with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, working on his stand-up ability, and he's working on more of a wrestling and a heavy and a control position, or a control style grappling to kind of help him to work with his jiu-jitsu. So I don't know if I want to pick him here, not to shit all over your prelim lock, but Chase Hooper, to this point, he does concern me. He's got that win-loss going. For my prelim lock, I'm going with Elise Reed over Sam Hughes. And the reason I'm doing that is because Elise Reed has a lot better history in terms of her fights. She is a lot more of a technical fighter. Sam Hughes can get a little wild. She, has 3 losses to people in the UFC who are of solid caliber. But I'm just looking at Tapology, looking at some of the past fights that Elise Reed has been in, some of the last fights that Sam Hughes has been in, to bring up your point about where Tapology rates these fighters. Elise Reed is at 25, Sam Hughes is at 52. Not that you put a ton of stake into rankings such as that, or really rankings in general, but I think Elise Reed is a little bit more compact in her stature. She's from Princeton, New Jersey. She's got some good wins coming into this. Her only loss was to Soraya Eubanks, which was a TKO in the 3rd round, I believe. Maybe in the 2nd round, but at the end of the day, I think she doesn't necessarily have chin problems. I think this one is almost definitely going to go to decision, and being that the case, I think Elise Reed is going to grind out the decision more than Sam Hughes. Oh my God, I'm getting everything mixed up today. I think Elise Reed is absolutely going to grind out a decision. The decision is the most important part of my pick and my prediction for this fight. Is I think Elise Reed grinds out a decision over Sam Hughes. If you don't want to ride with me, at least ride with me on the fact that this one is going to go to decision. Bet the house on it. Had a 4-leg parlay last week, betting only women's fights to go the distance, and we hit that one. So I'm going to keep striking while the iron's hot.
Yeah, it's a good pick. And, just in case you missed out on that parlay, that was we spoke about that here. That was also on my blog over at pickinwinners.org. So, make sure you're checking that out, following some of the picks. If you like them, tail them. If you hate them, then fade them. What else do you got for prelim locks? You got any more for us? Because I'm just going with the underdog Chase Hooper here. So what else you got?
I'm actually going to go with my boy Ugly Man Joe. Joe Holmes is fighting Alan Almadovsky. Alan Ahmedovsky. Sorry, geez. I'm for everyone watching at home. Apologize. I guess my tongue is just not where it needs to be today. But Joseph Holmes, his last time out was a loss to Jamie Pickett. And going back and watching that fight, you would see, kind of in the 2nd and the 3rd round, that Joseph Holmes just didn't have the energy and the stamina that he had in the earlier rounds. And I think that really affected him. Jamie Pickett was starting to land better shots, but Joe Holmes was fighting back, and he is extremely long for the division. 6'4", 80-inch reach. He's got really long legs. He jabs in the teep kick. He's got really good straight punches. I'd really like to see Joe Holmes come in there and use that jab, use those straight punches, use the distance to, kind of beat up Alan Ahmedovsky, beat up the legs. I think Alan, coming in, he's lost. He was 8-0, and then had 2 back-to-back losses. One to Krzysztof Jotko, who we know is, he's a fighter that wins fights, but he's not terribly exciting. He beats you up from the outside. And then you also have John Phillips, who TKO'd Alan Ahmedovsky with an overhand left. So I think Joseph Holmes has the power to put him away. He's got the style that's going to be a bad matchup, and is proven to be a bad matchup for Alan Ahmedovsky. And I think Ahmedovsky is, unfortunately going to have his UFC career in a little bit of hot water following 3 back-to-back losses after this weekend. You also have the age differential. Allen, 34 years old. He's in his prime, but probably on the tail end. Joseph Holmes, 26 years old, almost 27, entering his prime. He's going to have a 6-inch height advantage. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage. I think we're going to see Joe Holm kind of go in there and have his way, and I'm looking for a KO to burst onto the scene for him. His last fight, like we said, is his first fight in the UFC. Jamie Pickett left a little bit to be desired, but some really, really good things there, and I expect those to come out and be on full display this weekend.
Yeah, you're so right. Joe Holmes, Ugly Man Joe, he really did show a lot of promise in that fight. And, that he did give us a lot to look forward to. And one thing that we can't overlook is the fact that Ugly Man Joe is massive. He's a big middleweight, similar in size to the current champion, Izzy. He's 6'4" with an 80-inch reach, and that gives him a significant height advantage, a 6-inch height advantage, as well as a 6-inch advantage in reach. So, he's got so much going for him here, and Vegas clearly sees it too because Ugly Man Joe is a minus 200 favorite. I'm really riding with you on that pick. I'm a little bit annoyed at myself that I just kind of glanced over him, but you're so right. Since you brought it up, he did show a lot of promise, and I think that this is really going to be his fight to lose. So I think now we're safe to move it on up to the main card. And we've got Eryk Anders versus Junyoung Park opening up the main card for us. And this is one that, I could see this going one of two ways, really. And not like one of each of these guys is going to win. No, there's a specific way that I think either one of these guys is going to win. I think Eryk Anders, the former, I believe, Alabama football player, big dog in, the middleweight division. He's pretty big too. He's 6'1", 75-inch reach, not too much bigger over Junyoung Park, but in comparison to some of these other guys, he is he's got a big stature to him. But two things to look out for in this one is Eryk Anders potentially winning with a knockout, and we've seen him show promise in the past in that realm. He had the fight against Darren Stewart in which he was winning that one and then lost it with the illegal knee. Won that one with a unanimous decision. And then in his last one, he showed that he's not too great at jiu-jitsu and on the ground, especially off of his back, when he lost by armbar against Andre Muniz. And then you look at Junyoung Park, who is he's a guy that he's good in all realms, in particular when it comes to that dominating control. On the ground, he's called the Iron Turtle clearly for a reason because, I guess turtles are good on the ground. So, but, Junyoung Park, he's who I'm going with here because Eryk Anders, like I said, he showed us that he's not too great off of his back. And if Junyoung Park can get the takedown, then it's going to be a 30-27, 30-26 decision for Junyoung Park. It is tough though because Eryk Anders could land some shots. He does have some tenacity to him, but I ultimately think that Junyoung Park is going to be the guy that controls this fight and wins on the judges' scorecards. What do you got for that one, Tom?
Yeah, and Eryk Anders is a guy who definitely is technical when it comes to stand-up fighting, but he's not a guy that you think of first when you're thinking of hard-hitting power punchers, one-shot KO stylistic guys. And that's always kind of proven to be the issue that Park has is, sometimes he can have chin issues and then vice versa. Anders, when being good in a lot of areas, he also has, the same weaknesses against specialists in those same exact areas. I think Park is going to be better on the ground than Anders is and have a path to victory there. I also think Anders has an issue or he has a strength in terms or what is it? Park's strength or issue. Sorry, I'm getting all these words mixed up. Park's issue is with his chin and having heavy-handed guys land shots on them. That's not really a strength of Eryk Anders. So you take in a strength of Park's is, a weakness of Anders, and then Park's weakness is not necessarily a strength of Anders. So I'm not looking Eryk Anders to go out there and piece up John Hill Park for a terrible amount of time. And I also think Junyoung Park is going to be able to get Eryk Anders to the ground, maybe at the end of the first, second, and probably the third, as long as the energy is being conserved there. So I'm going with Junyoung Park to take this one in the first fight on the main card of UFC Fight Night Holm versus Vieira.
I like the pick. I'm glad that we're in concurrence there. So next up, we've got Polyana Viana versus Tabatha Ricci, and I'm going with Polyana. And, it's a little bit of a tough pick, right? Because this is another pick 'em fight. And we have seen Tabatha Ricci. She's 4-1 over her last 5, whereas Viana is 3-2. I'm sorry, 2-3 over her last 5. But I do like this little bit of a resurgence that we've seen from her lately. She is sort of like a veteran in the UFC. She has a lot of UFC events under her belt at this point, dating back to 2018. And she started off hot. and had some. She had she had one win starting it off hot, and she kind of went on this little 3-fight slump there. But now we're starting to see her rack up some wins using really good jiu-jitsu. Her go-to seems to be the armbar. She got a win over Mallory Martin using that. Emily Whitmire, same thing. Really high fight IQ. I mean, Tabatha Ricci is really good as well, but she seems to be more of a, like attempting to go for a decision fighter. At least in the UFC, more of a point fighter. She got knocked out by Manon Fiorot. And, I just don't see what everybody else sees from Tabatha Ricci personally. She's not as great on her feet as you would like her to be. And I have a feeling that when Polyana Viana gets us to the ground eventually, it's going to be another armbar victory for her. If not, just a controlling victory like we see in a lot of women's fights where she takes her to the ground, does what she wants with Tabatha Ricci. I like Tabatha Ricci. She's cool, but I don't know. I like this resurgence that we're seeing out of Polyana as well. Just a fresh version of her. I don't know if she switched up camps or what it is about her, but there's just something new going on here, and she does have a significant reach too. So someone like Tabatha Ricci, who likes to, well, I wouldn't say she likes to get hit by jabs, but she's susceptible to the jabs and a lot of strikes right to her face. Viana, if she wants to keep this standing, she can keep Tabatha Ricci at bay with that 5-inch reach advantage, just sticking behind her jab and front body kicks, like the Brazilians like to do nowadays. So I think that there's a lot of paths to victory for Polyana here, and Tabatha Ricci, despite being a Vegas favorite, I'm not really with her in this one. So what do you got here?
Yeah, I'm going to actually lean towards Tabatha Ricci, and for a couple of reasons. A length advantage can be a length or an arm or a reach advantage can be kind of negated by someone who gets in and likes to throw on the inside, which is what Tabatha Ricci likes to do. She's not like a typical or not typical, but many of the women's fighters who will keep a lot of distance between them and their opponent and throw strikes at air seemingly at times. She's going to be right in there, and she's going to be close. And then I think this fight's going to end up with a lot of scrambles happening. And I think in those scrambles, being the smaller and more compact fighter, I think it's going to have Tabatha Ricci winning more of those scrambles. And she has much better top pressure than Polyana Viana. And Polyana Viana, in those scrambles, has a tendency to sometimes lose. And then also when you take into account that Tabatha Ricci is a black belt to Viana's brown belt, I'm not so certain that we're going to see an armbar finish or a submission finish here by Polyana Viana. Now, I know that a black belt isn't always a black belt. It depends on where you get it and where it comes from. I know that, some schools like the Gracies are less inclined to give out those colored belts before, maybe some other school. But at the end of the day, you have both women coming from Brazil, so they're both going to be well accomplished on the ground. I like Tabatha Ricci, when we're talking about grapplers, to be a little bit more compact to win those exchanges and win those I don't know. I lost my train of thought right in the middle of it. I maybe need to go get a neuro evaluation. But either way, I like Tabatha Ricci in this one ever so slightly, but I would be skeptical if anybody said that they had a really, really good feeling on it one way or the other, because women's fights are always up in the air, especially when you're looking at two women who are from Brazil, who are grappling specialists. I think Tabatha Ricci does have a slight advantage on the feet when it comes to striking, especially because she likes to get inside. So it's going to negate all of the benefits that Polyana Viana has to offer. But ultimately, this fight can go either way. And looking at Tapology, you have it split 59 for Viana, 41% for Tabatha Ricci. Vegas goes the other way with a slight favorite rate, minus 125 on Tabatha Ricci. So this is a pick'em. Another one that I would hammer to go the distance.
Oh, yeah, that's a great pick, as always. Like those parlays to have women's fights go the distance right now, especially on the fight nights where, they're not trained. Well, they are trained killers, I guess you could say. They're professional MMA fighters, but they're not the types of killers that we see lining up like pay-per-views and trying to get a lot of eyes out there on these women. So yeah, it's probably going to end up being a really even fight that goes the distance. Great pick there. It'll probably be like a minus 200 if you parlay a couple of those. You'll end up making some good money here. So next up, we've got Chidi Njokuani, always have a hard time with his name, and then another crazy name, Duško Todorović. And I'll say this about Duško. He's a guy that I was pretty hot on for a while there. I felt good about him up until, about 2-3 fights ago when he started to show us that, he's not as good as everybody thought. He's a guy that came out of the Contender Series and actually won his debut in the UFC and then lost to Punelli Soriano, Gregory Rodriguez, and he just picked up a win against Maki Pitolo, who's okay. But the big thing about Chidi in this one is that he can do it in all sorts of realms, right? Like he has it on his feet, he has it on the ground. And I think two of the biggest advantages that he has over Duško Todorović in this one is that Duško's chin hasn't really been holding up, the way that we expected it to when he first came out. I remember when we first talked about his UFC debut, and we talked about how he is really good at on his feet, and he kind of just showed us that like it's not what you would think, out of this Serbian guy, and the other thing is too is like his fight IQ is not great. So because Chidi is really good on the ground at jiu-jitsu, say Duško does like somehow drop him with a shot to the face, shot to the chin, I can see him just following Chidi to the ground and getting wrapped up in something, getting choked out, getting an arm or leg potentially even snatched up. I don't know if Chidi's that good on the ground, but definitely potential choke, armbar, any one of those things. And just because Duško, that chin is failing him, so he could get caught on the feet, and the fight IQ isn't really there like we thought it was. So I'm rolling with Chidi here, minus 190 favorite. Another pretty big guy with a long reach advantage in this one. We'll see what happens in this one, but I feel good about Chidi. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. Duško Todorović, I tried to talk too fast there, isn't a guy who's known like Tabatha Ricci for coming in, getting in the inside, initiating that clinch game, and negating, having a fighting style that's going to negate a reach advantage. You have Chidi Njokuani, I believe is how he says his name or how it's supposed to be said. My apologies if not, but he's got power in his hands. He's going to have the reach advantage. He's probably a better technical striker. And the other thing about Duško is that he gets into exchanges seemingly that like his style writes checks that his chin can't cash. He's going to get into firefights with guys that ultimately at the end of the day, I don't think his chin has the ability to withstand and trade back. Our guy, Wasted Talent, coming in here with the hilarity comments about the backside for Tabatha Ricci. I'm sure that's why a lot of people are going to be voting on her and picking her to win. Something about a nice butt and an attractive female is definitely going to get them a lot of the Vegas money. So I wonder if maybe that's what Vegas is trying to accompany or trying to game plan for by giving her the favorite. Keith, I know you at times have definitely been the women's fights whisperer in terms of picking the women who end up winning it. So hopefully I don't hurt my record by going with Tabatha Ricci. I don't want to fall into the grift that all the other males are. But back to the fight at hand. Duško Todorović, I think he is a good fighter. He's solid. But I think that Chidi Njokuani is just better at the areas that Duško Todorović has strength in. So for those reasons, I'm riding with you and I'm going with Chidi.
All right. Yeah, I'm glad we're, in congruence with that one as well, because I think that that's a really smart pick here. And I have fallen victim to picking the more attractive woman in some fights sometimes. But, I think the track record would show that like the more attractive women haven't really been winning that often anymore. So next
Shout
we
out
have
Raider Nation.
So next up we've got Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Michel Pereira. And I'm going with a little bit of an unpopular pick here, but I'm going to take Santiago Ponzinibbio. And I personally feel like he was robbed in his last fight against, I believe it was Jeff Neal. This is a guy that he showed us he has been in some absolute wars over, the past year since he's returned to the UFC. The Jeff Neal one was massive. And the Miguel Baeza fight, I mean, you could easily throw that up there, with some of the all-time great, underrated fights, because that was super entertaining. Now, he did get knocked out by Li Jingliang, But Li Jingliang is good. He's not bad. He's nobody to scoff at. And one important thing to look at too with Santiago Ponzinibbio is it's another guy that we're seeing a resurgence out of, right? Like he had I forget what injury it was, but it was an injury that sidelined him for quite some time. And I think Michel Pereira, he does a lot of things well, but I think he's almost too flashy, too exciting in a way for a guy like Santiago Ponzinibbio who keeps it really basic. And what Michel Pereira does, he does it really well. But I think two things. Maybe Santiago Ponzinibbio is due for a win. I believe he's a slight underdog. Yeah, a slight underdog at a -105 versus a -115 for Michel Pereira. But Michel Pereira, listen, he looks really good, and this is more of a gut pick than anything. But Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's tough. He has the ability to counter a lot of what Michel Pereira is going to throw at him. He's really great with his hands. He's a great boxer, and he has an incredible chin. A lot of the times what we see with Michel Pereira, especially recently, like looking at, I believe it was Nico Price, he gets these guys in a really vulnerable positions, just attacks them, and then he starts doing wild shit like backflipping onto their face. And I don't think that that's going to work out for him in this one. I don't think that there's a moment where he drops Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think it's a tough one. This is a tough one because the more that I think about it, the more I'm like, well, maybe Michel Pereira takes him down. But I think Santiago Ponzinibbio, this is a guy that's driven. He's slightly older, but also slightly more experienced. He's a vet of the game. And I just like him here. I think he's a tough guy. And he's a very live dog at -105. That means even Vegas is a little bit undecided on this one. But Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's a dog, man. He's fucking tough. Michel Pereira, he's also tough. This is a tough one, but I'm taking Santiago Ponzinibbio here. You let us know what you think about that one, Tom.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go Michel Pereira. I think Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's like you said, he's a tough guy. I think he has had some good wins. I think the Li Jingliang win in history, in retrospect, doesn't look as good, right? Like with the things that Li Jingliang has done in his past, have been getting absolutely annihilated by Khamzat Chimaev. Now that's not necessarily a knock on Li Jingliang, but at the end of the day, I can't use Li Jingliang as the staple, as like, oh yeah, look, this guy's really good. And Santiago Ponzinibbio, it's hard to know what you're going to get. He's coming back in after the injury that had him out, and he's had some wins and some losses since coming back. Michel Pereira, I think we really saw a learning experience in him after he did that the flip. I mean, that was the same fight where he came out and he had a whole 5-minute dance routine prior to it, which I think definitely waned on his stamina going into the fight. Absolutely. But then you saw with the flips and the spinning stuff, by the second and the third round, he was pretty gassed, and there was no way that he could keep that up. So I think for Michel Pereira, I really am looking forward to him conserving his energy, using his skills that he has without having all of his energy drained from himself for unnecessary reasons. Michel Pereira, I think, is going to take this one. I don't think he's going to finish it, like you said. And I think Santiago Ponzinibbio is too steadfast to allow himself to be finished. But then again, sometimes you don't have a choice in that. I really like Miguel Pereira's previous fight against Andre Fiallo, a guy that we saw go on and have a great fight. I think it was this past weekend or 2 weekends ago. Cameron Van Camp knocked him out with a left hook in the first round. So, and that's a guy who has got wins over Miguel Baeza. So, I just think at this point in his career, I'm a little bit more high on Michel Pereira. He's the younger fighter, 28 years old, entering his prime. Santiago Ponzinibbio is on his way out of his prime. At what point is all of that damage going to accumulate and start to show effects? For those reasons, I'm going Michel Pereira.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me, at least. But I like the old tough dog. So next up, we've got the main event, and that is Holm versus Ketlen Vieira. And I feel like the UFC right now is trying to use Ketlen Vieira to be like that, old school veteran killer right now. Her last win came against Miesha Tate. And, Holm is 40. She's almost 41 years old. but she is a heavy, well, not heavy, moderate favorite in this one at minus 240, as opposed to Ketlen Vieira's plus 195. But, I think Holly Holm has this one. And that's because of the incredible stand-up that she has. That's just who she is. We all know Holly Holm. Like, she's one of the best female kickboxers of all time. There's not much else to say about that. And Ketlen Vieira, she does have the ground advantage. If she can take Holly Holm down, there is a bit of a worry for Holly Holm there. But I think, when it comes to keeping Ketlen Vieira at range, and using just her kicks really well, front kicks, teep kicks, it's going to be a really good showing for Holly Holm. A nice little comeback since she hasn't fought in the UFC since when? I got to check this out real quick. Okay.
A year and 7 months ago, Irene Aldana.
Yeah. But Holly Holm, despite the fact that she's 40, she still looks incredible. I mean, she's in crazy good shape. I don't know if she's trying to make a run at a belt right now. I don't know how that's going to shape out for her. But, I'm going with Vegas on this one because I think Holly Holm by decision, just racking up points, using leg kicks, sitting behind her jab is going to be really, really good for her. She's an intelligent fighter. She is one of the best female fighters in the UFC of all time. And despite the fact that she's had quite a long layoff, I think that this is going to be a really good showing for her because she's so good on her feet. And she's really tough to beat for a lot of women. And she's a little bit of a puzzle, like almost in a way, like a female Wonder Boy that she does have this really good stand up. That's, it's a puzzle. So I think for Ketlen Vieira, she's going to have to hold the L by the end of this one. What do you got here?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ketlen Vieira. There's a couple reasons. I mean, we haven't seen Holly Holm in the UFC cage in a year and 7 months. She is 40 years and 7 years old. So the last time, or in 7 months old. So the last time we saw her in here was 38, 39. So now she's coming in 40 with 41 right around the corner. At a certain point, you're going to see a skills drop off. Number two is she had a boxing and a kickbox. No, I think it was a boxing career, a full boxing career prior to this. And that's why I think Eddie Hearn really wants to get her to fight Amanda Serrano. And at the end of the day, Amanda Serrano, I think, is younger. She also does MMA, would piece up Holly Holm. Holly Holm is the one who kind of took Ronda Rousey off the map at the end of the day. She's been around for a long time. No doubt that she's going to have a lot of in-octagon experience. But that being said, that only goes so far. And I think with all of that stand-up ability, she does have a degree of hole in her game against really, really accomplished grapplers. And she's had – I saw you almost fall over there. Are you still struggling to regain your balance?
No. I was just sitting back.
Yeah, allegedly. Yeah. Okay, it looks like you're about to fall over.
No, I was stretching my out.
Yeah, I'm sure. Listen, if you had fallen over, that would have been great for the stream. So I encourage physical violence.
Wall. It's impossible for me to fall backwards. I'm sitting against a wall right now.
I like the new background thing you got going on too, just changing it up a little bit, keeping everybody on their toes as far as what our backgrounds are going to look like. Back to Holly Holm and Ketlen Vieira. I think Ketlen Vieira is definitely going to have the advantage when it comes to grappling and being on the ground. The question is she going to be able to get the fight to the ground? That's what Holly Holm is going to be expecting. But I just think that in Holm's older age, I think she's going to have a little bit of a speed drop off. Again, remember, it's been almost 2 years, a year and a half since we've seen Holly Holm. So to understand and know what we're getting, especially at that stage of her career, it's a bit of a crapshoot. We're expecting we're going to get the Holly Holm of old, the Holly Holm that we're used to seeing. And I'm just not so sure that that's going to happen. Ketlen Vieira had been in the UFC. She's coming off a win against Miesha Tate, back in November. So Miesha Cupcake Tate, I mean, I know she's the belt holder now, but right, I'm not wrong on that, right?
The Miesha Tate's the belt holder?
Yeah, am I Cupcake Tate? Am I completely getting my everything backed up? No.
What, like the division belt holder?
Yeah, no, I guess I am stupid. I don't know why I thought that. Why I was getting her confused. Either way, Misha, I just like Ketlen Vieira. Something in my inner soul is telling me to go Ketlen Vieira's route. I think coming in with an older Holly Holm, she is gonna lack some aspect of her game, and because of that, I'm going with Ketlen Vieira.
I think I'm gonna flip and the main reason for that is like you made some really incredible points there, and I did kind of talk myself into it before by stating just how old Holly Holm is and the fact that she does have a hole, in her game on the ground. But also like I'm looking at this line right now, this minus 240 line for Holly Holm, and this feels like a big time like casual trap line, right? Where Vegas wants people to sink a lot of money into Holly Holm because it's a name that people know. And, this is real betting logic right here. It's a name that people know. And Ketlen Vieira is a little bit more unknown to the casuals out there. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people that say, like, Holly Holm is a minus 240 favorite. Let me throw some money on that, 240 to win 100. Whereas I think not as many people are going to be touching Ketlen Vieira. Like, even if you look at Tapology, Holly Holm, 82% of the votes are coming in on her. And that's not to say that the people of Tapology are casuals. And I think that this will be a close decision come to the end, maybe 3 rounds to Ketlen Vieira. But, it's tough. I mean, like a line like this, it feels like a trap. And that is one of the biggest thing that's like, I'm on a swing right now. I'm going back and forth. The safest pick here is for this one to go to a decision, without a doubt. But, that minus 240 line is just so fishy. So this is a tough one. This is a really tough one for me as well. You made some incredible points. That minus 240 line is just so fishy. This is a tougher fight to pick than some of the other ones that we've brought up today. But I think I might have to stick with Holly Holm here.
That's always the case with a lot of these women fights, these female fights. Is it can go either way. As much as like one sided as one person is expected to be, they could just show up and then not be fighting like them true selves, or somebody just make massive leaps and bounds. Female MMA is still in its infancy, more so than regular MMA. I think the UFC and mixed martial arts as a whole has a lot of opportunity all over the world, especially in America, where it's still trying to make its way as the 4th, 5th, or maybe even 6th national branded sport. The men are, we're going to start to see guys who are 25, 26, 27 years old coming up and being in their primes and hitting the ground running, kind of like how in the NFL and the MLB, they have primes earlier and younger. I think we're going to start to see that a little bit more in mixed martial arts, guys hitting their primes 26, 27, 28, instead of looking to the 30, 31, 32, 33 for them to do damage. Women, it may still be a little bit older, but I think it's ultimately going to be faster, and they have a lot of growing that needs to happen in mixed martial arts. I mean, I think for the longest time, I don't know, you would have to go back and do some history in order to find out when was the first male MMA fight sanctioned and when was the first woman sanctioned, and then find the distance and figure out just how far behind female MMA is. But at the end of the day, I think what you were saying was right. I think Holly Holm is a name that Vegas is looking to capture bettors on. I think Holly Holm is a name that the UFC is hoping to get viewers on, and I think Ketlen Vieira is a name who is going to disrupt both of those two ideas. So with that being said, go ahead.
I'm gonna go with Ketlen. I'm gonna go with Ketlen here. Also, I like I said in the beginning, I think that she might be like that old timey veteran killer. So, a win against Miesha Tate, a win against Holly Holm, that might be the setup here, and that line is too suspicious. So I'm flipping over to Ketlen Vieira. So do you want to just run down our picks now? Close out this video?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. You want me to start first, or do you want to go first?
For it. I don't care. You take it over.
Well, let me put the pick rundown tab on. And the way I look at it is, if I could pull up the cards here so I don't misspeak, even though I probably will find a way to anyway. I'm going with Elise Reed over Sam Hughes. Take that one to go to decision. I am taking Joseph Holmes over Alan Amedovski. I think Joe Holmes goes out there and gets the knockout. I think he wants to make a big impression after dropping the ball slightly against Jamie Pickett. It was good competition, but I think he's going to go out there, be hungry, be motivated, look to make a name, put a stamp on his name and the fact that he belongs here. I think we're going to see some big improvement, especially in the stamina, in the way he controls his stamina throughout the fight. Moving on to the main card. Also, I'll ride with you. I'll go Chase Hooper over Felipe Colares. From a couple of the points you were making, I think it is time that Chase gets his win. But, I don't think this is the last we see of Chase Hooper if he leaves. I think he'll continue to improve his game and then come back to the UFC maybe in a little bit. So those are my 3 picks for the undercard. As far as the main card, I got Jun Young Park taking it over Eryk Anders. I have Tabatha Ricci taking it over Polyana Viana. I have Chidi Njokuani over Duško Todorović. I have Michel Pereira over Santiago Ponzinibbio. And I have Ketlen Vieira over Holm. Somehow, I messed up almost every single word the entirety of this video. But with all of those names and the freaking minefield it was, I somehow didn't get any wrong. So pass it off to you, Keith.
Yeah, so I'm taking Chase Hooper. I think he's going to win that one by decision. I'm also taking the ugly man Joe Holmes by knockout pick. I like that. I'm taking Jun Young Park by decision. I'm taking Polyana Viana for the underdog money. Chidi Njokuani over Duško Todorović. I like that pick. I'm taking Santiago Ponzinibbio, slight underdog, -105. And still a little shaky on this one, but I'm taking Ketlen Vieira. Any updates on that one? If you follow me on Twitter, it's down below, right below this handsome mug of mine. So you can follow me over there. Guys, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like it says down there, please like, comment, subscribe. We got some great comments from some great people on here today. Our friends Tyler, Wasted, some great comments. Please subscribe. It really helps us out a lot. You have no idea how much. Follow the Instagram and the Twitter for our page. That's @_Pickin Winners. Check out the stuff that we do with menoforder.com. Check out the stuff that Tom does with Overtime Heroics and the rest of our Pickin Winners family right here on Pickin Winners YouTube. Shout out to Tyler and Mikey. That lacrosse show is great. All right. See you, Tom.
Bye, Keith.